What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am back with the finals of the Surge format All-Star Summer Showdown tournament, where your Kansas City Jirachiefs are taking on Techno, the rep of the Hive and the coach of the Carolina Pantherians. Make sure to go check out Techno's channel. He'll be linked down in the description below. A very strong content creator. He's been consistently improving, I feel, as a content creator over the past year or so. And he's fun to watch and really knowledgeable, too. I personally rate him in the top 5 of draft players, period, right now. So he's very good and a good content creator. So if you want to learn a little bit about mods, make sure to go check out his channel for sure. And he comes from a really good league. The Hive is a very talented league, lots of strong players, so you know we have our work cut out for us here. But I'm going to, I guess you can already see it in front of you right now. You can see the bracket that we've gone through here for the Gold Division. There were 2 divisions in this tournament, just as a reminder, the Gold Division and the Silver Division. There is a Silver Division finals match that should be getting uploaded today as well. That one is featuring Hiker Toad, who was a rep of LD, League Dependency, I believe, and the other was Choice Specs, who is the rep of the PGL. Make sure to go check out that game, in addition to this one, of course, where you have me, who is representing the GBA, and Techno, of course, from the Hive. So you can see the path to the finals that Techno and I have gone through. We both played against some really strong players, and here we are with the finals. So let's take a brief look at the transactions that we made for this round. As you should know at this point, every single round of this tournament we are able to make transactions with additional points available to us in our budget. And let me tell you, there was some crazy mind games, I think, going on with this last round of transactions. It was only me and Techno remaining in our draft pool, so we're the only ones drafting out of all the Pokemon that are possibly available on the draft board. So there's a lot of stuff we could choose from, and not too many extra points that we could work with. We only got 10 extra points to work with, and 2 slots for transactions instead of the 4 slots that we had in the previous two rounds. And it's pretty intense here. But we actually ended up picking up 2 very solid Pokemon here. We picked up, first of all, Zygarde 50. We had the first draft position in the first round. We picked up Zygarde 50 right away because I feel like Zygarde is a mon that is really good at beating its so-called counters, especially when you run a Z Captain Zygarde 50. I feel like it's able to break down really anything that tries to stand in its way. For example, even if someone were to draft like a Tangrowth, which in theory is like the textbook counter to a Zygarde, Z Zygarde is still able to break through a Tangrowth, either with maybe Z Outrage or just running Sludge Wave, Z Sludge Wave. There's a lot of ways that a Zygarde can break through its supposed counters. So that's why I wanted to start off with a Zygarde, who is going to be replacing one of my 2 grass types. I didn't feel like I needed both Celebi and Roserade, so I'm going to actually drop the Roserade for the Zygarde, mainly because I felt like Roserade wasn't really necessary, especially when the other mon I'm picking up here is going to be Scolipede. So Scolipede was really good against Techno's team for 2 reasons. One being the fact that he picked up both Mew and Tapu Koko as his 2 mons for this round, while I am also dropping Roserade, so I'm dropping my Grounded Poison. Yeah, so the thing about Techno, okay, the thing about Techno is his game plan, I guess, is really heavily centralized around speed control as well, just from what I've noticed from watching him. And Scolipede kind of makes speed control go out the window, especially when Techno really doesn't have great Trick Room users. Scolipede pretty much will always have the speed control advantage. And I think it's just a really good anti-Techno Pokemon, plus just having the Toxic Spikes access is really good just against his team, and Spikes as well. Just hazards are really solid against his team, and having that stab super effective coverage for both of his high tier pickups in this for this round of the tournament, I thought was just overall a really solid option to have for my team. So I'm dropping Hawlucha for the Scolipede as well, mainly because I wasn't able to grab something like Tapu Koko. I strongly considered having having both Tapu Koko and Zapdos on my team if Tapu Koko were to become available to me in that last round of transactions, but unfortunately that wasn't what ended up happening since Techno did pick up the Koko, but I think Scolipede overall is actually even better for my team than Tapu Koko would have been, considering what Techno picked up for his own squad. So let's talk very briefly about the matchup now that we've gone through the transactions. So Techno has access to several really threatening mons. I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head. He has access to an Empoleon, which is his only fairy resist. Keep that in mind, as that's something I'm going to definitely take advantage of here with my team build. Then he also has the Mew and the Tapu Koko. He has a Garchomp. He has a Passimian, a Claydol, his 2 low tier mons that he actually kept around, I think, since the very first round, and just continued to like build up the other mons on his team, which is that's fair enough. That's a cool strategy. Then he also has access to a Tornadus T and a Weavile. I believe that is 8 Pokemon. If I missed one, I'm sorry, but I think it'll come back up later if I did miss one. I'm not sure if I mentioned Garchomp. He has Garchomp as well, but so he has 6 really good high tier mons and then 2 kind of low tier mons that in my opinion aren't very good against my team. So what I actually think I'm going to be able to do here with my team build is to kind of hammer down my focus on those 6 high tier mons. The only low tier mon that he might bring would be the Passimian, and the only reason he would bring Passimian, in my opinion, is to be a counter to my Scolipede. Passimian having naturally high base defense and decently high base HP, and also access to Rock Slide would allow it to at least switch in and force out my Scolipede at some point during the game. That would be the main niche of Passimian in this matchup, but I think the Garchomp can also accomplish pretty much the same thing. So I don't think he really needs to bring Passimian, but you know, you never really know. With finals matches like this, people can bring crazy stuff. I have lost to my fair share of crazy stuff in the playoffs and in the finals as well in the past. So I'm not going to rule anything out here, but. Yeah, so before we jump into the team, I guess to let you know, for those of you who maybe haven't followed me for too terribly long, I actually don't have a championship under my belt. I have been very close many times. I have won the regular seasons of leagues and not won the championship in the playoffs. I've been close in tournaments, top 8 in BFA, lost out on a freeze. A lot of crazy stuff, okay, has prevented me from winning championships in the past. And that's why you see that that hashtag there in the intro, refuse to lose, because this is an opportunity I do not want to let get away. I put my absolute max effort into building this team for this week. I spent more time than I probably should have, sacrificed some sleep in the process as well. And let's talk a little bit about what I came up with for this matchup. So starting this off with the Scolipede. Now Scolipede is a mod that I know is going to scare the ever-living daylights out of Techno from an offensive standpoint. Okay, his team is very weak to Scolipede. If I'm able to whittle down Garchomp and Passimian, an offensive Scolipede theoretically would just win against his team. Okay, so he's pretty much forced, in my opinion, to bring like a defensive Passimian, a defensive Garchomp, or a bunch of resist berries to help him not lose to the Scolipede. Maybe even like a defensive Tornadus, that's possible. He has to really prepare heavily for an offensive Scolipede in order to not just lose to it. But because he has to prepare so heavily for it, and I know he will, I actually don't want to use offensive Scolipede as my primary win condition in this game. It's too predictable. Techno is far too good at the format to even allow me to win with something as straightforward and obvious as an offensive Scolipede. So I'm not going to go with a purely offensive Life Orb Scolipede in this matchup. Instead, I'm going to build around a Toxic Spikes variant with a little bit of extra bulk to allow me to still somewhat threaten his team with my speed and with the combination of Mega Horn and Earthquake. But to, yeah, it's able to basically be both that offensive threat and just be a general fast nuisance, fast and bulky nuisance, I guess, for his team. So Toxic Spikes, first of all, are amazing against him. He dropped Mega Venusaur in this round of transactions. I didn't originally plan to build in this way whenever I was doing my transactions, but once I saw that he dropped Mega Venusaur, Toxic Spikes became so attractive against his team. especially because with Toxic Spikes on the field, a lot of his mons that are naturally bulky end up putting themselves into range of other offensive mons on my team. So Toxic Spikes just support my team in this matchup so well that I wanted to really build around that. So I'm running a lot of bulk, mainly to allow me to survive a rock attack from Garchomp or Passimian, as well as survive hits from Empoleon as well, as I really think Empoleon is probably the safest option for me to set up my Toxic Spikes on, mainly because I know Techno as a player, and I know that he is going to want to preserve his Empoleon's health at all costs, especially when a lot of my team, especially when specifically my Gardevoir is only resisted by that Empoleon. He's not going to allow me to weaken down his Empoleon with my Scolipede, because that puts him at risk of losing to my Gardevoir. So I know he's going to preserve health, which means I should be able to get my T-Spikes up on Empoleon with relative ease, and I should be able to honestly keep them up for the majority of the game for that reason. So that's the thought process here behind how this Scolipede is designed. I have Mega Horn and Earthquake to hit most of his team pretty hard. Gives me a good offensive check to Mew even without the Toxic Spikes on the field, and Protect is just to ensure that I'm able to outspeed his team at +1 from my speed boost, and it allows me to gradually chip down his team with just due to the ideally the Toxic Spikes that are going to be on the field. So we're going to build around this Scolipede, naming it Captain Marvel, bringing in some of the big guns here with the nicknames you will see from the mons. You can probably already see them now already. Some of the real big guns. If you just look at the Avengers names that are my nicknames here for this week, there's some pretty high-powered dudes here for this matchup. So next up is Zapdos. This is the mon that I think is able to benefit the most from the Toxic Spikes being on the field. An offensive Zapdos with agility. Techno, like I said before, loves to value speed control in his building. Having mons like Scolipede with speed boost, like Zapdos with agility, those types of mons are really anti-Techno, being able to control and command speed control on my own and prevent him from having it at all. So having agility is really nice for that reason, being able to outspeed a lot of his faster mons, and if he does have a Scarfer that I know is a Scarfer, I can just agility twice and I'll be able to make sure I outspeed those as well. As you can see, I'm only running 28 EVs in speed, which is just enough to allow me to outpace the expected Tapu Koko set that he will bring here for this matchup, which is just enough to outspeed my max speed Mega Houndoom. So I don't really need that much necessarily to be able to pull that off. But yeah, I just felt like the extra bulk and special defense that I could add by making that type of judgment would really be beneficial for my Zapdos survivability, especially against a Weavile, which its Ice Shard is like the only way he can really check this thing if I have the Toxic Spikes on the field. So this is just so good against this team. The Zap Plate and 156 EVs in special attack modest nature allow me to 2-hit KO the expected Mew set and basically just OHKO or 2-hit KO his entire team, while he's not able to 2-hit KO me back. And what's really cool about this set is that because of agility, I'm actually able to 1v1 Tapu Koko as well, unless he has like Taunt, but I don't think he can run Taunt. I think he has to be 4 attacks Tapu Koko. Thunderbolt, HP Ice Grass, now U-Turn, I think is the set he has to be in this matchup if he wants to have momentum on his Tapu Koko. If he doesn't have momentum, he might have Taunt or Toxic, maybe Dazzling Gleam, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I think he runs 4 attacks Tapu Koko, and that type of set is entirely walled by the Zapdos if I get up in agility, because I can just roost up on his Thunderbolts repeatedly until his electric terrain runs out. Then he does like no damage to me whatsoever. And if Toxic Spikes are on the field, it's just getting worn down over time while I'm getting more and more health back and preparing myself to potentially sweep his team. So this is easily the biggest win con here in this matchup for me, and we're going to try to build around that a little bit. But my secondary win condition in this game is the Gardevoir Choice Scarf. He has exactly 1 Fairy Resist now that he has dropped his Rotom Heat and his Mega Venusaur. That is the Empoleon. As I already mentioned, between Gardevoir and the Scolipede, that Empoleon is going to be pressured a lot in this matchup in my opinion, and that's really good for me. Okay, so I can just spam Moonblast on the modest nature on this thing. I'm able to outspeed again the projected the most likely Tapu Koko set here in this matchup, just outspeeding my Mega Houndoom and just fire off really powerful Moonblast against his team. And if he does happen to give me electric terrain and he tries to go into Empoleon and I predict that, then I have an electric terrain boosted Modest Thunderbolt to donate that Empoleon as well, and that would do a lot of damage against him too. So then the last two moves on here, Healing Witch is really nice to maybe help my Zapdos get back up to full health if I feel like I need it, or to maybe heal up my Zygarde that I'll show here in just a little bit, just based upon how I plan to use the Zygarde, and again I'll talk about that in just a second. But then the last move is Toxic, because in order for this team to win, Mew has to have a status on it. I need the Mew to be taking residual damage for my Zapdos to be able to guaranteed beat it 1v1, and just in case he is able to remove my Toxic Spice in this matchup, I want to have an extra way to Toxic the Mew just to ensure that my Zapdos can do the job it's intended to do. The next up is my Zygarde, so Dragonium Z, my Z captain now for this round, and just a very straightforward set in terms of the move set. Dragon Dance, Outrage, E-Speed, and 1000 Arrows, very solid against his team. The E-Speed again is a really anti-Techno option, allowing me to command speed control in this game. Extreme Speed, of course, having +2 priority, and being able to offensively check a lot of the scarier, fast members of Techno's team, like the Tapu Koko and the Weavile. This will be able to pretty well check both of those Pokemon, especially if I have a Dragon Dance up as well, as I'll get that extra power boost and just be able to generally threaten his team a lot at that point. So the Dragonium Z is, I kind of played with the idea of actually running like Choice Band instead, but my idea with Dragonium Z is obviously it gives me a way to just straight up nuke a defensive Mew if I get +1. I think defensive Mew can survive a +1 Dragonium Z Outrage, but if it has any chip damage at all, it probably doesn't. So that's something I can really keep in mind as a potential win con in this game, but that's not really how I plan to play my Zygarde. I have a lot of bulk on this set and some special defense investment as well, because I actually plan to use this as a lead in this game, and that's kind of weird to say when you see a Pokemon like this that looks like it's basically a win condition. It's a setup sweeper, but hear me out. The idea is that it basically puts him in a position where he's forced to make certain plays to where he doesn't immediately lose to Zygarde, okay? Because a +1 Zygarde, quite honestly, can threaten to sweep an entire team from turn 1. It can do that. That's just what it does. It's an amazing Pokemon. 1000 Arrows is a broken move. And if I lead with Zygarde, he's going to feel pressure to immediately go for whatever his Zygarde deterrent option is. He can't just go for a free Stealth Rock on turn 1 unless he just has Balls of Steel, okay? So he can't go for Stealth Rock. He can't just go for like a Toxic or go for some passive option. He has to attack me, basically is what I'm saying. He has to taunt me or he has to attack me to have a chance against it, and I'm going to be able to take advantage of that on turn 1, in addition to the fact that I have a very good switch. And so basically his best counter lead to Zygarde is Garchomp, but I have a very good switch into Garchomp in my Gardevoir, and what Gardevoir does is Gardevoir forces in the Empoleon, which allows me to get in my Scolipede, which allows me to get early game Toxic Spikes. Okay, so Zygarde puts him in that early bind early on in the game, and also kind of does that against the Mew as well, because I can switch in my Gardevoir to Mew, and again Gardevoir forces in the Empoleon, which allows me to go Scolipede and get T-Spikes. It's a cycle that I'm trying to set up here in the early game, and Zygarde just does that amazingly as a lead here in this matchup. And then next up is the Cobalion. This is my dedicated Weavile response, basically max Biz Def, to make sure I can take a Life Orb low kick, 2 consecutive Life Orb low kicks after rocks. That's the idea behind all of this defense investment. And Stealth Rock, obviously, to help me wear down his team and chip down that Weavile over time. Rock Polish is mainly just there in the case where I'm about to sack my Cobalion. It'll ensure that I can get off a little chip damage on whatever comes in to try to check me, which most likely is going to be either the Tapu Koko or the Mew, and in either case, that extra little bit of chip damage on either of those two Pokemon makes it much easier for my Zapdos to be able to beat them 1v1. And then finally, I have my Seismitoad, which is another Stealth Rocker in this team. I am highly prioritizing hazards in this matchup. They're so good against this team. I'm able to pressure his defoggers really well, I feel, with this team. So having all those hazard options are pretty nice for this matchup. Knockoff to help out against the Mew, remove a potential Tanga Berry, or to remove his leftovers, and also just to maybe remove other general items on his team. Maybe like a Tornadus Assault Vest could be nice to get rid of for my Gardevoir. and Toxic again for the Mew, just to ensure I can get that Toxic off against the Mew if I need it. Earthquake is just nice against his team in general, especially the Empoleon to help whittle that down for the Gardevoir. So as you can probably tell, put a lot of thought into this team, and you know, I think it's a finals-worthy team and one that can take on Techno and maybe even knock him off. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the match itself. And as you can see, Techno decided to bring exactly the team I expected him to bring, which is really, really nice to see here at Team Preview. He has a few good lead options against my team. I think his 3 most likely leads are, I guess 4. I don't think he's leading with Weavile, and I don't think he's leading with Tapu Koko. I think he could lead with Torn, Garchomp, Mew, or Empoleon. I have a game plan in mind regardless of which of those 4 he decides to lead with, and it all involves leading with my Zygarde as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right on into this game and see if we can claim our first championship in my Draft League career. So as you can see, Techno is going to issue the challenge, and he is going to send out his, well, I send out my Zygarde, fittingly named Thanos because it can basically end his life, and he leads off with his Tornadus, which is an amazing lead for me because what I can do is just go straight for a Z move. He is not going into Tapu Koko on turn 1 on a Zygarde. That would be the man play of all man plays, expecting this. If anything, he goes into the Mew, but instead he opts to just go straight for the Icy Wind, as I kind of expected, fearing me to go straight for the turn 1 Dragon Dance. So I'm going to pop off my Z move, the Devastating Drake, Z Outrage, Adamant Nature, nearly max special attack, and this Tornadus is not taking this hit unless he is a Focus Sash variant, which is possible. A lead Tornadus could easily be Focus Sash, but it doesn't really make the most sense against my team. Much more likely he is an Assault Vest variant to help him deal with my Gardevoir, and the Tornadus goes down immediately to my Zygarde, getting off to an early 65 advantage as he goes into the Garchomp, which makes a lot of sense because I am a big threat. I do expect him to just go straight for a Dragon Claw, or worst case scenario, a Stealth Rock on this turn. I'm just going to go straight into my Gardevoir, knowing I can force him out, and knowing that I can take any one hit from this as well, unless it's like a Tectonic Rage or a Life Orb Poison Jab. So I am able to chew the resist or be immune, I guess, to the Dragon Claw, and now I'm going to just pull a double into my Scolipede, expecting him to go into his Empoleon, but instead it's even better for me as he just decides to go into his Mew here. So Mew is probably going to be threatened by this, but just in case this is a Choice Scarf of Mew, I am just going to go for a Protect first, just because I don't really fear anything that he could do or switch into, honestly, so I might as well just go for that Protect first, as he just goes for an Ice Beam, which I thought was very interesting. That implies that he might be a Tangaberry because he stayed in and just went for an Ice Beam, so I'm actually going to go into my Seismitoad just in case he is a Tangaberry set and was just trying to bait me into a false sense of security for whatever reason. I just go into my Seismitoad and he just goes for an Ice Beam again and freezes my Seismitoad. So this is kind of rough. Seismitoad admittedly is probably the least important member of my team, as long as I can get a Toxic off on either this or the Garchomp. And as long, or if I can get like a knockoff off on the Mew, if Seismitoad can just do something, it will have done its job in this game. I have 4 moves. If I can click one of them, I'll be happy. But unfortunately, you know, the freeze is kind of annoying. But fortunately, we are able to thaw out here and get a Toxic off against the Garchomp. Now here, he is basically, I'm at a range now where he very well might not be able to take me out with a Dragon Claw or an Earthquake. So he's basically forced to burn his Z move, or maybe just go for Stealth Rock first. Either way, I thought like those are the plays he would have to go for. So I'm just actually going to go for my own Stealth Rock just in case he decided to not take me out yet, which that's what he decides to do. That's perfectly fine with me. He gets up his own rocks, but I feel they hurt him a lot more than they hurt me, particularly in the case of that Weavile that's so crucial for him to be able to check my offensive threat. So here, like I mentioned before, I think he's kind of forced to go for a Z move to guaranteed knock me out. He doesn't know what my set is. He has to assume that I'm basically max Fizz Def Seismitoad, and I do have a lot of Fizz Def investment, and if that's the case, I might have been able to take the Earthquake. So he just goes for the safe Devastating Drake, probably knowing that I would sack this off, but also just in case piece, I wanted to switch out my Seismitoad. So you see 2 devastating Drakes in one game, which you don't see too terribly often. So down goes my Seismitoad, but he did do his job despite the fact that he got frozen a little bit earlier on in the game. So now this Garchomp is looking like it is nearly going to be in range of my Scolipede. I do have all that extra bulk investment on the Scully. I know that after 1 Protect, especially, or even without the Protect probably, I can guarantee take an Earthquake from this thing. I know it's not like Life Orb or Banded, so I know for sure I can take it, and I know there's nothing he can really do to stop me from getting up my Toxic Spikes right here. And what's ultimately going to happen by getting my T-Spikes up at this point, even if he has Defog on his Empoleon, and even if he is able to defog, basically this Garchomp is getting put in a position where he'll never be able to get his rocks back up either, and I can always preserve my Scolipede's health to be able to get the T-Spikes up again later on in the game. So as you can see here, I get the T-Spikes up, he's just going to go for his Earthquake, and I'm going to survive it with relative ease, and due to the toxic damage racking up on the Garchomp, it's now easily in range of an Earthquake, so I don't have to risk his Rough Skin potentially knocking me out, and more importantly, I don't have to risk my Mega Horn missing at this stage in the game, and I can just knock the Garchomp right out. I have all my hazards on the field, and now it's basically just a matter of properly positioning my Zapdos to a point where I should be able to win the game. The one big threat I have to keep in mind right now is a potential Calm Mind Mew. I think Calm Mind Mew is easily the most threatening member against my team right now, and if he does have Calm Mind Mew, I might be in a little bit of trouble. We'll just kind of see how this plays out here, as he goes into the Weavile because he's pretty much forced to go into the Weavile, but I have a dedicated counter to the Weavile. That is my Fizz Def, Chople Berry, Cobalion. I'm just going to switch straight into that. Even if he predicted that and went for a low kick on this turn, I know I'd be able to take that in addition to another low kick with relative ease, and Cobalion would have easily served its purpose at that point. As you can see, the Ice Shard just bounces off. He gets a critical hit, which, yeah, that still bounced, and it's easily in range of an Iron Head here. And if he decides to go into the Mew gets poisoned, and I'll be able to get Iron Head damage off on that as well. So really, this is just a win-win situation for me, as he just goes for a low kick and crits that one as well, and we're able to still chew that up despite that, and we're able to knock out the Weavile as well with an Iron Head. So probably the best Revenger on his team is now gone. It's just a matter of breaking down the Mew into range of my Zapdos, and that's all I really need to do to be able to win the game at this point. So what I'm going to do here, I don't need my Cobalion anymore for any reason whatsoever. I'm just going to Rock Polish up, just in case the Mew outsped my Cobalion. I kind of thought it would. I thought the Mew would try to outpace an Adamant Zygarde, but it turns out he actually is not able to, and I'm going to still survive the R-Sphere despite the back-to-back crit, so that's kind of nice. That means I'm going to be able to get this little extra damage off against the Mew with my Iron Head here. And as you can see, this Iron Head does about 0 to the Mew. So this is fully physically defensive Mew, which is really good information to have for later on with my Gardevoir and my Zapdos as my 2 win conditions in this game. He does reveal, however, the Heal Bell, which is very interesting and something to keep in mind here later on in the game. Basically what this means is I have to force out the Mew and force it to come back in on the Toxic Spikes at a point where my Zapdos is already set up. That's pretty much what I need to have happen, as if the Mew comes in on Rocks and T-Spikes and my Zapdos already has an Agility up, there's no way it's going to be able to survive back-to-back modest Zap Play Thunderbolts from the Zapdos. So that's the general game plan that I'm trying to accomplish here in the late game. My Cobalion goes down to a second R-Sphere, but again, it really has done its job against the Mew. It was able to get a little bit of chip damage off on it, basically ensuring that it's probably going to be in range of my Scolipede. Because my Scolipede isn't going to go down to the Stealth Rock here, I'm going to be able to go for a relatively safe Mega Horn, because I know I outspeed the Mew despite not being even close to a fully speed invested Scolipede. My Cobalion outsped the Mew, so I know this outspeeds the Mew as well. I can go for his safe Mega Horn as he opts to go into his Empoleon, which I thought was a pretty interesting play. It basically implies that he has a Shook Berry Empoleon, or so I thought, but he actually has the Aqua Jet, so he's going to be able to pick off my my Scolipede, which is good for him. Definitely is now that Mew has a little bit better chance to do some damage against my team potentially. However, I do have my Zapdos, and this is my best opportunity to go for the win with my Zapdos. He is forced to switch his Empoleon out if he wants to have any chance to survive the onslaught from my Gardevoir. So what he's going to do is he's going to switch into his Mew, and because the Mew is slower and I have just a little bit of speed investment on my Zapdos, I don't have very much, but I do have a little bit. That little bit of speed investment is actually going to come in clutch here, as I'm going to be able to, I believe, outspeed the Mew on this next turn. I decided to just go for the agility just in case he has enough speed for my Zapdos, and he just goes straight for the Ice Beam, basically praying for a freeze. I feel as that's probably his only way to really be able to stop me at this point, but by going for the agility there, and ensures I outspeed the Mew, the Tapu Koko, and the Empoleon. The only way he can outspeed me with anything on his team is if he is a Choice Scarfed Tapu Koko, and if he is a Choice Scarf Tapu Koko, that's Zygarde food. Zygarde will set up on Tapu Koko locked into Thunderbolt, which is probably what he would have to go for. Or if he happens to be a Choice Scarfed Tapu Koko with Hidden Power Ice, then I would actually be able to go into my Gardevoir, Healing Wish up my Zygarde, and then I'd be able to guarantee take the HP Ice and sweep his team from there. So that's the idea behind the Tapu Koko, and let's see if he actually can outspeed me. He cannot, as this means that the best thing he can hit me with is probably going to be a Resisted Thunderbolt. And as you can see from this damage, it's definitely not Choice Specs. Okay, that did not do much damage at all. And this basically means that it's in my best interest to just start clicking Roost repeatedly. I don't think he can really do anything to me, and until he tells me, until he shows me that he can do something to me, I really don't have a reason to go for any other play. The only thing that could have been a little bit of an issue here is if he was like a Calm Mind Tapu Koko, but like I've already mentioned many times, I am confident that he is a 4 attacks Tapu Koko. I feel like that's what he has to be against my team. He can't afford to be Calm Mind Roost. That'd be the only set that might actually work against me, is Calm Mind Roost at this stage in the game, but there's no way he could afford to run a set like that. So what I'm just going to be able to do is just click Roost several times in a row against the Tapu Koko, and there's really no fear of him being able to break through my team. But what I have noticed, despite that critical hit there on that turn, his Thunderbolts are doing progressively more damage over time, and that means he is a Metronome Tapu Koko. So he brought Metronome, I think, in back-to-back rounds of this tournament. So very, very cool prep. You don't see Metronome every day. It's definitely an item that actually I've never used myself, just because I feel like it's really situational. But, you know, if he was like Dazzling Gleam maybe on his Tapu Koko, it might have done a little more damage to my team, but I think I would have been able to like recognize what was going on faster in at that point. Since I'd be going under half health or whatever, I'd be able to see what the issue is and respond accordingly to that. But even if he was able to break me down a little more with like a Metronome Dazzling Gleam, I feel like I'd be able to at least get him into range of my Zygarde's extreme speed, which means that Zygarde would be able to clean up the remainder of the game between his Empoleon and his Tapu Koko. So he just gets another crit with the Thunderbolt. So a lot of crits here in this exchange, but it really doesn't make much of a difference because I am just able to continue to get my health back. Sure, I could have just gone for a Thunderbolt on that turn, but just in case somehow the Empoleon was able to survive my incoming Thunderbolt, or maybe, yeah, just in case he was able to survive my incoming Thunderbolt, maybe with a Wakanberry or something. There was really no reason for me not to attack at this stage in the game. I was just playing it really carefully, okay? Knowing that I'd be able to knock out the Tapu Koko eventually without losing my Zapdos in the process, basically, to a potential Empoleon set. So even so, we are able to knock out the Tapu Koko, and in comes the Empoleon. Can Empoleon survive a Zap Plate, almost max special attack Zapdos Thunderbolt? The answer is no. And your KC Jirachiefs have finally broken through and claimed our first title. Great game to Techno. That was a really good game for sure. Man, it feels good. Let me tell you, like, I'm elated over here about this game. I put a lot of effort into this team, and you know, it paid off. So, yeah. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for following throughout the tournament. Obviously, I had a really good time with this tournament. I put a lot of effort into the tournament from start to finish, and I hope that came across through the team builds, through the uploads, through the battles. I tried to really put my best foot forward here for this tournament, and you know, really happy with the result. for sure. So again, make sure to go check out my opponent's channel. Techno, going to be linked down in the description below. I hope he uploads his side as well, and you can check that out. Again, make sure to go check out the Silver Bracket Finals featuring Hiker Toad and the choice specs from the League Dependency and the PGL, respectively. That's going to be a great game as well, I am sure. But, you know, I think we are about done here. Be on the lookout for a bit of a discussion video just about Surge format in general. Going to try to bring together all the finalists and just have a little discussion about the format just to see how everyone enjoyed it, maybe talk strategy a little bit, and we'll just see if maybe it can become something more than just this one tournament. I really enjoyed it, obviously, and I kind of get the vibe those guys did as well, but I need to, you know, gauge the opinions of more people across the community and see what we can do with the format from here. But this will wrap up this year's Summer Showdown. It's now fall, but you know, we did finish. It's kind of close to summer. It's like October, and you know, it's just 2 weeks or so that summer ended, but you know, close enough. But yeah, I think we're about done here. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all next time. Peace.